They reached out and said, you need to release him. Why did you detain him? So think of how that makes the government look at Afghans. It's like, well, you don't really think that the Taliban's that much of a threat. You're asking them to release the operational leader, the number 2 of the Taliban, right? So we still have this problem where a lot of people still sit at the table with the Taliban, right? Khalilzad's really great example. So we also need to do something with these Taliban sympathizers because they're going to keep undercutting any kind of resistance. And I do think they're a part of keeping people split too. So yeah, they all have to come together. And, I've honestly said this frankly to people. So, Al-Qaeda's planning a homeland attack. And I've actually said to people in the resistance, if that attack happens and you guys haven't come together and you can't show us you're a capable force, we're going to Pakistan, right? I'm going to call up the Pakistanis and say, I'm going to give you a lot of money to take out Hamza bin Laden. I'm not going to call the resistance because you guys are infighting and you didn't come together. So I do think they need to come up with a plan. Even in Haiti, after those gangs took over, like right away, they're like, oh, we made this interim council, right? Like that matters to the West. It might not matter to the people fighting and doing attacks every day against Taliban, but you need some sort of united front to get recognition.
Who do you envision would take control of that? Would it be Masood?
I would like a power sharing agreement. Obviously, I like NRF. I really like General Zia. So I would probably lean a little more towards him. Like I said, I don't really like to pick sides, though. I think you can have leaders across this doing multiple things. Even if you think about the Libyan revolution, you can't name a guy. You can name the guy who set up the council, Usama al-Jalali, but you can't name the commanders. There was no head commander, right? Like they all ran certain pieces of it, and I think that's what it needs to be.
Well, they're going to be watching this. They're watching this show like they're on it.
But, well, the terrorists watch it more. So.
Yeah, well, I found that out. They started tweeting about it, but on X, which, is kind of, unsettling. But, I'm interested. There's another thing that you kind of brought up. Why did the UN invite the Taliban to talk about climate change? What is that?
So the UN essentially wants to recognize the Taliban, right? But every time they try, women show up and protest. And so they're now trying, like, it seems odd ways to do it. And they're like, let's bring them to the table on the climate, right? Because people agree on that. So it's just the UN's way to keep kind of opening the doors more and more to the Taliban because the intent is to recognize that government. Like the UN is not planning anything that I've seen to basically go after the Taliban. Remember, we talked about this previously, they gave up the restrictions on some of the Taliban senior leaders' travels. That's how Sirajuddin Haqqani got to go to the Hajj, right? The UN Security Council allowed that. So yeah, this is just another step in their process to recognize the Taliban.
So they don't. So this has nothing to do with climate change.
No, it
this
doesn't.
Has everything to do with just.
Come on, you lived over there. They burn shit every day.
They burn tires to keep warm. I remember spitting in the sink in winter, and my spit was gray. That's how bad it was. So
just not at the edge of the climate change problem.
Yeah, I mean it sounds ridiculous, but the audience doesn't know that, and so that's why I want to bring that up. It has nothing to do with climate change. It's only
politics.
Yep. So let's move into Hamza bin Laden. Mm-hmm. Let's move into that.
Yeah, I mean, since I was on the last time, the Western press finally broke he's alive. The interesting part is the U.S. still won't print it. The U.S. press won't. But what happened is, interestingly, British intel leaked it to their press.
Really?
Yeah. And from what I'm hearing, they did it because they were upset so apparently the CIA has been trying to curb the U.S. intelligence community and even trying to curb the Brits, saying Hamza's not alive, don't talk about Hamza. And basically the Brits are like, screw you. And they put it out in the press. The funny part is the U.S. press still didn't pick it up. So the U.S. press still went to the CIA and CIA is like, don't print it. So it went, all over the world. It was all over in India, all over in Africa, and it didn't print here.
Hold on. Why does the CIA not want that out?
Because they don't believe Hamza bin Laden's alive.
Excuse me?
I know.
How so?
He's like running Al-Qaeda. He's hosting meetings like every week.
do they really not believe that? Or
I think
is this just to cover their tracks?
I think they really don't believe it, but then they've put no effort in the last couple of years to be like, well, we should run it down and maybe reverse our assessment. And remember, the same thing happened after Benghazi, right? We knew Al-Qaeda was there in real time. And then they all went down some weird fake protest thing. But then CIA never changed their assessments when they knew Al-Qaeda was on the compound, right? So sometimes it's almost impossible to get the CIA to reverse an assessment.
So for those that don't know, Hamza bin Laden is he's basically the catalyst here. He is marrying into all these terrorist networks. We discussed this on your previous interview, but just to summarize it, he is kind of uniting them. The common goal is to come to the West, terrorize the West. How is this guy different than his father, Osama?
Yeah, Hamza's a problem. So it's really interesting. So Osama bin Laden, first off, Hamza really believes in being kind of undercover and covert. Like, he doesn't want to really go out there and be on TV or even do like the audio recordings. Like, he wants to stay under the radar, hidden. He wants you to not even like know he's running things.